welcome to another episode of The Flank, man. I'm joined by Christopher Duarte, aka Parasite. We got Sam LaRue, the motherfucking world champ, joining us today. Somebody disconnected. Who was that? Was that Pat? Oh, no, that's Sam LaRue. Yeah, that's Sam LaRue.
I love TeamSpeak on accident.
Sam, I was literally gassing you. I was calling you a world champ and everything.
Listen, I left TeamSpeak on accident. It's fine. Just assume, listen, rings, championships, all that. On to the next.
Yeah, all right. And we got Patrick Price, aka Aches, the one and only. And then we got the executive producer, Mr. Ben Genesine. Guys, what's going on, man? It's been a little while since we ran a flank. What's happening? Talk to me. Ben, let's start with you.
It's been good. Just trying to enjoy some of the decent weather in Columbus while you're in Vegas. I was streaming in the afternoons, doing some stuff at night, trying to just enjoy the summer. So it's the off season, you know, trying to touch grass a bit.
Yeah, man. Man, just trying to touch some grass. I like that. But Sam, what have you been up to, bro? What have you been doing?
Streaming, bro. It's all
every day, bro. Just grinding, huh?
And buying furniture, spending cash, filling the house.
Yeah,
retirement life, you know, like,
adulting.
I'll probably start golfing, playing shuffleboard, and all that stuff.
Shuffleboard.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's what everybody does these days, bro. Everybody golfs, I feel like, these days. What about you, Pat?
Great, man.
Pat, you do any golfing these days or what?
No, I'm not doing any golfing. Just work, getting the X-Defiant ready to go. Gonna release.
What do you think that would be?
Here this summer. I know you're looking forward to playing, Sam, but yeah, this summer you'll be able to. Don't worry.
Oh.
And Chris, what about you, bro? What you been up to, Chris?
I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum as Ben. I have not been touching grass. I've been playing, MMOs, RPGs, like, you know, the good games.
You're playing BDO, right?
I just started playing BDO. Yeah, I beat Elden Ring. That game was hella fun. And then also I'm getting a tattoo sleeve started in like a couple days. So I'm pretty excited for that because my first tattoo and I'm just going all in. So
you're getting a whole ass sleeve?
Is it an anime sleeve?
It is indeed.
Oh my god.
Indeed.
How could I
love it?
The anime, it's anime based. It's Demon Slayer themed.
I cannot believe it.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Sam. What's yours? Let me see yours.
Are you adding color? Are you adding color, or are you doing black and white?
It's gonna be colored. It's gonna be colored.
Oh, that's dope. That's it. That's it, bro. Yeah, do your thing, bro. Do your fucking thing. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's cool having all five of us here. I want to talk a little Rostermania. There's a lot going on with rosters. I know we've been talking about it in the Flank production chat a little bit. People be losing full in that chat if we don't give out intel, bro. We be losing full on each other.
It's not the on-air talent losing full. I'll say that.
Yeah, people have definitely been losing composure a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of changes that just happen every day. Like a lot of changes, a lot of ups and downs, and teams are still trying to figure it out. But I feel like for the most part, at least with the rumors, we kind of know who's going where when it comes to like the top side of the teams. Would you guys agree with that? Like, I feel like the top teams, we kind of know like kind of where they're headed for the most part.
I think for the teams are pretty set. The issue right now is there are like the next four teams I think are in the process of locking in their rosters, but it's even more of a entangled situation than the top team situation. So was hoping it would kind of get resolved by this weekend. Some of it kind of has, but I think we may get more confirmed information probably later on this week.
I'm honestly just really excited for the top four teams, bro. I think every single team potentially made upgrades here. And I think at least among the top four, like there's going to be some serious battles next year. Hopefully the game is good to complement the roster changes that people have made. Because I think everybody's kind of on the same page that everyone's just trying to make a God squad this year.
Well, I mean, that's
everyone.
Yeah, you can't do that, right?
Well, not everyone, but like the best teams, the top teams, I guess, is trying to make a God squad. Sorry.
Yeah, the top teams, but it's impossible for everybody to have a God squad.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure people we'll talk about some of these middle of the pack of the teams and talk about some of these rumors, because I kind of feel like I know who's kind of going where when it comes to that mid pack, and then I also think there's teams that just aren't doing anything yet. Are there teams right now that have legit? There are, right, that have legit nobody.
London and Vegas, yeah.
That's what Vegas did last year, right?
They're not going to resolve their situations until
well, somebody told me that not a single team made a move until the top four was done.
Mm-hmm.
Like not a single team 5 through 12.
I believe it.
That's just I don't know
anything.
They talk to people, but like as far as like confirming, I mean, it's the other way around. Like the players weren't going to make a decision until the top four locked in. So,
That
like,
kinda
No.
makes sense.
I'm saying like the teams 5 through 12 didn't like give any player an offer until the top four was solidified.
that's
Well,
not true.
That's what I
There's
heard.
no way that's true.
That's not true.
Like an official signing offer type of thing.
That's 100% not true. There is
What I
at
heard
least
from
one
a
or
player.
two.
From a player.
Well, I can tell you for a 100% fact, there was at least one or two teams that were giving out like formal offers. The thing is, those are the players that were going to top teams.
No, that's what I'm saying, Ben. Outside of the people on the top 4 teams, no one got an offer. Like everyone waited for those people to get solidified.
Ben, I think he's right. I'm pretty sure he's right.
I think you guys.
No one else even had a conversation.
You just changed what you said. Now you're right. But
did we not hear what I said? Outside of the top 4 teams players, no one got an offer in the CDL.
That's not what you said originally, my guy.
That is what I said.
No, that is not.
Welcome back to the flank, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you not infer a simple sentence? Bro, half of the people in the top 4 was signed. Who do you think I'm talking about? There's only 4 people that joined the top 4 teams.
I know Ben understood it as nobody except for the top 4 teams were giving out offers.
100%.
That's what he was saying. That's what you thought Pat was saying. And granted, I thought it was the same thing until he
okay, anyway, Pat is right. Let's just leave it at that. Pat's right. Besides the top 4 teams, I'm pretty sure everybody was waiting, at least from my information, from my sources as well. I agree with Pat on that one. But I say we go through the rosters, man. There's a lot of rumors going around with some of these rosters. Some rosters are still up in the air. Some aren't. We'll give our thoughts. We haven't really regrouped since all this roster news was going down with all these teams. So just kind of want to get everybody's thoughts, and we'll go just kind of through team to team. So let's start with the New York Subliners. That's pretty recent. Let's talk with them. I feel like there's a lot going on with New York. Obviously, New York, they won 3 events. They were looking like the best team, or they are the best team coming out of last year. So I feel like a lot of people are just shocked that they're making a change. And things get a little dicey here because it's Priesta who is ending up probably going somewhere else. That's what the rumors are saying. But I think we're all pretty confident that it's done, that he's probably not going to be there. And I think it's really interesting to talk about what happened. Was it a thing where he wasn't getting enough money and something was going on and they couldn't agree on terms? Or did New York not want him? Did they not want to play with him? Did nobody want to take a pay cut? Because I know in the past, people have wanted to take or teams have taken pay cuts. Like players will take cuts to get the right players on the team and make sure you keep the best team possible. But Chris, go ahead. What do you think it is? Unless you know, but.
I don't know for sure, and I don't think many of us will know unless Preston or anybody on New York kind of comes out and says it. But I don't think that's ever going to get out because I think that's just going to create such a bad relationship between people that I don't think it necessarily needs to happen. Anyways, I just seen a lot of terrible takes on like Reddit and stuff like that. It's like, oh, dude, he's getting dropped. They're like, why are they dropping? I'm like, they're not dropping him. Like, it's business. It's like if he wants this hypothetically, and they can't give him this.
Yeah, they literally got dropped.
He got dropped, Chris. He got dropped.
He basically got dropped. I mean, he didn't get dropped, but he basically got dropped.
Look,
well, that's not necessarily.
It boils down to 2 possibilities.
It
boils down to 2 possibilities. That's disrespectful. One is that he got lowballed so much to the point where he actually got forced out, and all he cared about was money. He was like, "Look, I'm taking a 6-figure pay cut, whatever." And 2 was the team didn't want him anymore, and they just like couldn't have the fucking balls to go tell him, so they got the org to break up with him.
Yeah, well, but if that's literally it. If that's what it is, then that's a completely different story. But I'm saying
if they wanted to play with him, they just won champs. That team has all the leverage in the world. If they wanted to play with him, he would have been on that roster.
But that's what I'm saying, though. But that's what I'm saying. I agree in that aspect because if I was them, if I really cared about having Priest on my roster, wouldn't I have there's got to be somebody out there willing to take a pay cut unless he's just really.
That's why I'm saying they didn't want to play with him. That's the only plausible explanation.
They wanted Preston on the team after they won Major 1. They would have signed Kiz to an extension because he was on the last year of his deal, and they would have restructured Preston's contract. They knew that was gonna be a problem with Kiz. Like they could have solved this 8 months ago, but they didn't. And I think to the point of what Sam said. It's been radio silence from Kismet. It's been radio silence from Sky. It's been radio silence from Hydra. Like, curious to know if the players wanted Dante over Preston.
Yeah,
and then management just kind of, held the line, and the players not willing to kind of reorg the financials to make it work.
Honestly, this is kind of a really good, and I wouldn't say bait because if it's true, I mean, they probably won't really say much, but like if it's not true, I feel like we're kind of poking the bear. These guys actually might want to actually come over and clarify some of this stuff because
cool, say something.
I would actually love that because I'm actually curious what the deal is too. Like, because I mean, I could definitely see a world where maybe Priesta was probably last on their priority list. Obviously, they have Hydra and Kismet on there, which were arguably like probably the 2 most important things are the two most important players on their lineup this last year. And then Caesar, who obviously made massive improvements, and his communication, all that stuff was vital to the team's success. And Priest kind of was always the what is it called? The X factor for the team, where I guess they've kind of put all their eggs in, to those three. And then I don't know. I don't really know how it worked.
I mean, Pat, I want to get Pat's opinions because I see you bring up the tweet about, pack-a punching. Do you think it's a packet punch, Pat? I'm guessing you do, based on by what you're showing. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Look, every single team in the top 4 got better, and I think NYSL started thinking, late into not late, but after this season, if they're gonna stick, they don't know if they're still gonna keep that reign as the #1 team. I mean, realistically, that team was only the best. Let's ignore the first event for the last 30 days of the game. They were pretty up and down the whole year. And then the last 30 days of the game, similar to the Thieves last year, just became better than everybody else. But outside of that, they were pretty inconsistent. They were going up and down. They got a 12th and 8th. So to me, at least, I think they realized that they had an opportunity to make a swap for a player who they thought had more upside in Sib. And I obviously think Preston is very good and had a great turnaround year, but he was been pretty inconsistent the last few years. The fact that we were talking about him for most improved kind of speaks to that. And I think they just wanted to ensure that they weren't falling behind while everyone else was getting better. So to me, I don't think it had anything to do with money. Because even if let's say it did have something to do with money, I would expect that Preston wouldn't get, more money from any other org than he would have gotten on an NYSL lowball offer anyway. Especially when you factor in the fact that they would have been a top 4 team. So to me, I don't think it had anything to do with money. I just think these guys on this team wanted to pack a punch, and they did.
They just felt the pressure of everyone else changing around them. Yeah, they're like, "Fuck, we got to make a move."
I think some additional context. I don't think I think you're kind of spot on, Pat. One is I think it's been clear for a number of years, if you read some of the reporting that's been out there, that the management of the team has rated Sib for a while. So not even the players, the management's been on board about potentially picking him up. And there was a conversation, I think, what was it? Last year or the year before, where they tried to buy out Sib from Atlanta FaZe.
Yeah, I remember that.
He went to Seattle. So there's that. I think the other thing is, I will say this, is I actually do think Preston may have some opportunities to make more money than he would have gotten from that original New York offer. I've seen a lot of discussion on Twitter and Reddit about it. I do think there are a number of teams that are going to want his services. I know that Boston in particular is giving out some kind of pretty large offers of significant size, and they're looking for players that have won before, have chips, have veteran experience.
They are?
Yeah.
Why?
So, what do you mean why? Because they're looking for their first event win ever. Like, they want to get one on the board.
But why? To me, that's not good business. At the end of the day, we know that 60, 70, 80% of these teams are doing massive pay cuts. Why are they offering the bag when they know they're not getting top 4 talent? Like, to me, that's just a waste of money. You're already going to get the best talent, though. You're already going to get the best talent. You don't have to offer the bag.
Well, I don't know. I guess it depends.
But I'm saying no one else is offering any money. So why would you go why would you offer top 4 money when it's like you're not competing against anybody?
You need to be careful because we have, like, I would say the next 4 teams, right? Thieves, the rumor is that Thieves aren't offering big contracts. It's unclear what Seattle, Minnesota, LAG, well, I assume LAG is not going to offer big contracts, and Boston are doing. So I'd be careful about the statement you're making that 80% of the orgs are pay cut, because I don't think that that's 100% true just yet, Pat. Also, it might be true, but at the moment, it's still a competitive market. Also,
who's to say
what? I don't need to be careful whatsoever. Like,
why does
the top 4 is offering the money, and they're getting the best teams.
You're making a claim that's 80 or 90%. Like that may not end up being true.
It could be 70%. Who cares what that number is? The bottom line is that 6 of these teams, no player wants to play for anyway. And so I just don't understand what Boston is competing against getting the talent. At the end of the day, regardless of the money Boston's offering, if they're already at the top, whether that be just a little bit ahead of whatever Thieves is given or whoever the next best is, they don't need to throw the most amount of money because they're already going to be ahead. Like, the think about it this way. If you looked at every player that's available in the CDL right now, and outside the top 4, obviously, they're going to want to team up to be the 5th best team. Like, it's just how it's going to happen. So if they're that destination anyway, they're going to land those players without paying an obscene amount of money. Like, to me, it would be a waste of money.
Yeah, but
I don't
think that's what Ben was arguing. I think you guys need to meet in the middle here. I think I think at the start of Rostermania, Boston was probably one of those teams that was desperately trying to kind of like get a like S tier player on their team at the very least and start kind of building around them there. They obviously, at least from the rumors, they didn't, or they haven't, or they won't. And now they kind of will take a different direction. They're not necessarily just going to keep shelling out the amount of money they would have paid for an S tier player to somebody that's not an S tier player. Like you guys are like,
that's not so black and white. It's not very as black and white.
Yeah,
I was like, huh?
I was thinking like they just needed to, more so to Pat's point, they just have to offer the best of the rest. Yeah, that's it. Like, but they just have to make Boston the destination over, you know, Minnesota, Seattle, or whoever's left. You know what I mean?
It's a tough situation because obviously we're not in these negotiations. We don't know who's throwing out the first number, right? When it comes to negotiation in this situation, like if you're the org, you don't want to throw out the first number. You want the player to throw out the first number so you can go lower.
Well, in this,
So-
I mean,
So it's a little bit trickier because I don't have a full handle on what the market is offering for these players and what the end deals are going to end up, because essentially for Minnesota, Seattle, Boston, and Thieves, who I would think are the next four up, like none of them have league approved deals as far as I know yet from new players this season.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Preston, because I feel like you guys are just like, oh, it's a pack a punch, and then we just kind of moved on. I don't know if it's exactly a pack a punch. I feel like Preston was an important player for them.
it's just a very hard point to argue, because the main metric that people use for just pack a punching would be the first thing you can look at is stats. And like, I think Preston's argument isn't stats and it's the eye test. And when you have to argue based on the eye test, it becomes a lot more subjective, as opposed to, Dante just a clear cut KD upgrade, which is obviously way more objective. So I think Preston, obviously the most wins in the CDL era with 4. That's a guy that is, or 5, excuse me, is the most proven winner that we've had in the last, 3 or 4 years with the league of Simp and Abizi still in it, as long with, my team, a lot of these guys. And he's not dropping the 1.1s, 1.2s that you've been waiting on since Black Ops 4. He was getting called to get dropped on Minnesota in Cold War. He's just been a player that a lot of people are waiting to pop off. And even if he's not, he's still a proven winner. So it's very hard to argue the pack-a-punch point, because what he's bringing isn't in the statistical category, which is much easier to object and argue about, in my opinion.
That is a good point, but like I said, I was actually going to say to circle back to this conversation, so I'm glad you did, Tom. I just want to talk a little bit more about Sib, because I think Sib in this Rostermania is, I think a lot of teams, at least skill ceiling wise, are going to like regret the opportunity of not locking him down quicker. Especially, I think him going to New York is probably a best case scenario, at least for him. I think this is a team where he is set up to thrive. Just going all the way back to the history of Dante as a player and as a personality. Like, I still remember the days where people, said he was toxic and he was a bad teammate, and he was just like, people weren't sure if like he was going to make it in this league environment. Well, fast forward to now, I think he's kind of changed that, with his current team. And I think him going to New York is going to further enable that growth of him as a team that has this really good team culture and like is really good at kind of just like bringing up everybody to a significant level with the coaching staff that's there, and even the players, bro. Like, just having level-headed, hardworking individuals on your team, like, I feel like this is going to be very good for Dante. And skill ceiling wise, that guy is absolutely
he's a shooter.
He's a really good player. He's a really good player.
That's just not the, like, that kind of circling back to what I was talking about. It's just not the argument, really, is that you'll get better stats, but like, what will
at what cost?
Dante, exactly. Like, Preston is guaranteed, I could say the word guaranteed at this point, wins in the CDL, and you're picking up Dante for stats. Now, again, this is extremely surface level argument. There could have been something within the camp that obviously we're not going to ever know about, and that could just be the root of everything, and that's just what happened, and now we have to make up all these arguments. But I think at the surface level, when you just argue KD against what Preston was doing, going the right ways, enabling his teammate, just being that kind of glue guy, essentially, it's a lot harder of a conversation. Again, sure,
even the way you kind of
Dante can give you 7 more kills than Matt, but is that going to equate to a championship? Who fucking knows?
They're a team that, you see them if you're streaming in the morning, they're in their Twitch chat at 10 a.m. Like,
Kisses in my shit all the time.
That's what I'm saying. It's even the little things, like how they talk. It's also the little things, Ben. Like how the work ethic, like how Preston talks with his teammates in game and out of game. Like, I don't know. I felt like they had something good. Like, they had a good chemistry there.
That's why the change is just wild.
Yeah, like
that's why the whole conversation's insane.
Yeah.
But I could see why, right? Like, if they're trying to like shaking things up, but I personally would have kept Preston. I would have kept him.
I will say
I would have
this.
too. I would have too if I had this opportunity. Real quick, Ben, before I just before you go, some people are out there saying as if this is not more so of a like Sib versus Priesta thing. Because the way I look at the whole opportunity was, I mean, you guys might look at it differently, is like if they couldn't come to a business decision to keep Priesta because the metrics or whatever didn't make sense, it is what it is. But I'm saying Sib is not necessarily a bad thing for this team. I'm not saying he's better than Priesta, because I would have kept Preston if I had the opportunity to, but I'm saying this is a good thing for Dante is what I'm trying to say. So people need to stop like saying
it's a very good thing for Dante.
It's just one of these
great.
Seattle to New York.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
great.
It just boils down to the players, man. Like they wanted this. Let's like clear the air here. If they wanted to keep that roster together, those 4 players had all the leverage in the world, and the fact that roster changed meant that they did not want to play together anymore. So Dante coming in is like one of the, I mean, in the players' opinion, probably best case scenario.
I hope we get answers. That'd be nice.
I'm sure maybe one day we will.
We're never gonna get that.
You don't think so?
No.
Maybe. Go ahead, Ben.
I don't think that comes out.
I don't know if we'll get answers. And like again, I agree. This is great for Dante. Like he's going into one of the best team cultures in the CDL last season. As long as they replicate what they were doing last season, like he's going to learn a lot. And if he kind of thrives and kind of sticks with their system, which is a lot of playing around Paco and kind of going from there, they improved a lot of situational search play. Like I think they got better, at least from the skill standpoint. The tough thing I think for New York is, like last year, everybody on the team, literally everybody, including the coaching staff, had a chip on their shoulder, right? You had Troy Sender, who got dropped from OpTic. You had D-Real, who went on our show and said a bunch of stuff he probably shouldn't have said.
Shit went crazy. Yep.
You had all the stuff with Paco, and then he was on OpTic, and he wasn't on OpTic. The only person who probably didn't have a chip on his shoulder was Kiz, but he was in the last year of a Prove It deal, so maybe that was a little bit of a motivation.
He had a chip on his shoulder for sure.
Preston had that Minnesota 2 years, which, yes, they won one event where they had a crazy 0-4 comeback in a best of 9. But outside of that, there wasn't a lot of success with that team over 2 years. And then Caesar, who obviously they had a promising first year of Florida. And then, you know, rest in peace, Pharaoh. Like since after that, they really struggled to be, you know, a successful team in the CDL. And so he was coming off a tough situation. You combine all of that, they were definitely a team looking to prove stuff. And they came out to a hot start last year. Obviously, the middle of the season didn't work out that well, but the end of the year, they came good. They got to find a new motivational source now, a new thing to really tap into. Now they're the team that everybody's looking to beat because they're the number 1 squad. So I'm curious to see how they do.
Yeah, we'll move on from New York. We'll see what ends up happening there. If we get some official announcements there, if we hear anything from their camp. But let's move on to the next team, Toronto Ultra. I think we should talk about them a little bit. Obviously, the rumors are.
Punch picture out, Pat.
Yeah, I think this is where Pat might want to start talking about Pack-a-Punching because they're bringing in Dylan Envoy, and I think it's a fantastic pickup. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Rostermania. It's as simple as that.
I could honestly be a hard agree.
They won Rostermania. It's not even close. They made the biggest 1-for-1 upgrade of any team in the CDL by far. They literally got. They kept basically the same role of player, but got someone who is just straight up better across the board in every game mode.
Pred is just the exact same situation.
Yeah,
but Kenny for Ghosty was kind of a downgrade in my opinion. So
Pat, I think to be fair, I think I see what you're saying from the Hixie to Envoy thing, but I think it's fair to say that all 4 of the top 4 teams got better now.
I mean,
we already said that. I just said they made the biggest improvement.
But I'm saying I don't think there's an individual winner to Rostermania because I think all 4 top 4 teams are like improved. I don't think anyone like lost out, at least at the moment.
Just because someone made the best of 4 good moves doesn't mean anyone lost.
Yeah, but they had one of the biggest,
made the best move. They won Rostermania.
They had the biggest kind of area of weakness.
They just went from a top 2 team and improved their weakest link, stole another team's great player who plays the exact same role as their weakest link, who's literally like basically a 0.2 KD better and also just statistically way more proven. I just don't see a world that they lost Rostermania. They by far made the biggest 1-for-1 upgrade, going from top 2 to basically now
OpTic didn't lose Rostermania, FaZe didn't lose Rostermania.
No one is saying anyone lost Rostermania. I'm saying Ultra
won.
You're saying
they won though, as if they're like the only team that won.
I think
Everyone got
everyone
better.
run. They won
made
the
Yeah, but
most.
that-
Ben.
listen, somebody's
They
gotta
won
be-
the most.
Y'all
Somebody's
love
got to
to
be
argue,
in,
bro.
somebody's got to be in
Hello?
second.
It's ridiculous.
Oh,
to
Ben,
compare-
Toronto
have you
made the
ever-
most
have you
valuable.
ever
Hey, you
watched,
guys love
like,
to
an
argue.
NBA
Why
ros-
is this
have
an
you ever watched
argument?
an NBA offseason? Like, one team makes an A+ move. That doesn't mean that 3 other teams can't make A moves. It's just,
I want to talk about
they
Toronto.
Made the
Three other
A+
teams
move.
can make A+ moves.
All right, let's move on from this
But
topic.
they did it.
Nah, they did.
It wasn't as good.
All right, wasn't as good. Okay, so I want to talk about Toronto a little bit with Scrappy, because I know there were some rumors with Scrappy maybe being sold from the roster, and Toronto also started the Rostermania Fugaze by announcing that hey, like, we got some players that we're looking to sell. Like, initially it looked like they were budget cutting and selling players,
Hold
which
on, Toronto didn't say anything, Tom. Like, I want to be clear about this Toronto situation.
There's a
Like,
rumor.
didn't
what
the
happened
players
with-
tweet out?
No one tweeted out. Here's what happened, bro.
Are you
Like,
sure?
here's what happened. In the situation is when I've been able to piece together, management started trying to make decisions without really talking to the players, and
Okay.
it pissed off a lot of people. And it pissed off a lot of people in their camp. They have a big kind of culture in Toronto of people that are still with the org, people that got
Mhm.
let go last year, and a lot of unhappy people. You know what people that are unhappy do, Tom?
Uh-huh.
They start leaking stuff. They start talking to Ronnie or Jacob Hale
True,
or
it's true.
whoever. And so like a lot of information was coming out, but I would say that a lot of those people didn't have all of the pieces of what was going on in terms of what management was thinking. And where management ended up kind of netting after a couple of days of multiple conversations is like, okay, well, we're not going to blow up the team because that's a dumb decision. So we're going to keep this team together. We're going to look to upgrade Charlie, who, yes, we picked him up and we won. He was a great player for us, but there's a potential skill upgrade there. And they targeted Envoy and they got it done. That was a respectable deal. They were able to make sure that Scrap didn't leave because it seemed like that was maybe a possibility, although I don't know how realistic that was. It seemed like there was conversation there. So now Toronto's sticking, and that's basically what went down. So I wanted to be clear because there's a lot of misinformation about the situation, but there was no official statement from the players or the org. It was just a lot of the rumor mill kind of spinning.
Nah, I do
Be
gotta be
careful,
careful.
Ben.
No,
Be
I do.
careful.
No, I do gotta
Yeah,
be
you just
careful
gotta- you
because
just
Ben's
gotta be
right though. He's
careful. You
right
just gotta
though.
be careful.
Gotta be careful, but he is right though. I mean, it was confusing, to be fair, Ben. There was a lot being said and a lot of different posts and a lot of different things up in the air. So it's hard to keep up sometimes with some of these teams. But regardless of the fact, I think they have a great team. I think they're gonna be definitely a top team. They're gonna be a force to be reckoned with. I agree. I just feel like Dylan Envoy is a born winner. Like that, you know what you're getting from him. And I think he's going to elevate the people around him. I think they're just going to get better from this. So I don't think anybody disagrees with that, right? You guys all agree that Toronto's just going to get better.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
You think
I mean,
you see
I
Hixie?
can sit here and glaze Dill if you guys want, but I mean, yeah.
I mean, you
that
play
was
with
pretty
him,
unbelievable.
so and I
Yeah,
know
no,
rumors
I
were
was the
him.
biggest fan of that.
No, some people were saying that he was going to OpTic. That there was a little rumor of Envoy going over there for a little bit. But that obviously went away when Pred came into the picture. I actually kind of like the way Pred and Shotzi duo's kind of holding up over there. We can move on from Toronto. Before we move on, do you see Hixie getting on another team? Do you see him going anywhere or no?
No.
don't? Really?
Maybe on the low end.
I
Which
would
is crazy,
be-
which sucks.
I
mean-
would say that there's a chance because of, I think the sub position, the SMG position, there isn't like a massive gulf of talent.
Uh-huh.
So he might get in if someone's looking for more of like a steady presence, but it's going to be more of like a London or a Vegas type situation.
I
or
think he
LAG
could be another
likely.
mid-season move. I don't think he starts.
Bro,
We'll
I'm
see.
actually mind
He might
blown.
get a sub spot.
The guy that we're talking about here that just got dropped for Envoy may not even stay in the league, and you
He's-
guys don't think that's
don't
the
think-
best move? Are you kidding me?
Wait,
do respect
Everyone
that.
else who got
Valid
dropped
point.
on the top 4 teams is definitely staying in the league.
I agree
It's a valid
with
point.
you. I
We're
think it's the
arguing
best
this
move.
guy
No,
may not even stay
I
in the
think it's
league.
just-
and
I think
we're
it's-
saying
let's
that
not
he
say
didn't
that.
make the
Let's not
best
say
move.
we. I agree with you,
I
Pat.
think
I think
I
it's that and
agree
Pred,
with you as well.
for
I think,
sure.
but you think it's him and Pred are the two best?
The two best moves, yeah.
One
Yeah.
for one, yeah, but for team, I think they just they wiped the floor. They literally dropped a guy who may not even stay in the league.
Some people are saying in the chat he might maybe London. I don't know. I haven't heard much from the London camp.
You're
I
not-
know
you're not gonna
other.
hear anything about London until the fall. There's no one there to make decisions right now, Tom. Like,
Yeah, well,
it's-
That's
It's a-
interesting. That's crazy. It's
so-
just empty. It's just a fucking
I
graveyard
wonder
over
if
there.
those guys
They're
are
not in a
still.
rush.
I wonder if those guys are still trying to like make a European, like a English team or like a European team, because we already know their ownership is.
What do you mean? They're literally rumored to go to Charlotte.
bro, there's
Yeah, but their leadership, like the organization behind them, is that like a buys? Is that him? KOI or whatever.
Just-
The guy
this is-
literally left. It was Odie who ran
Yeah.
Dignitas for like 12 years. He
No,
literally
but didn't you
just
say
left.
it's under new management, like Ibais or whatever his name is, the KOI guy?
KOI, but like it's just unclear what's gonna go on with that team. There's no one to make decisions right now, so there's no priorities. There's no directive. Like they're not in a rush to really complete their roster situation. So to speculate on, is it going to be a full European team? Are they going to go like the route that you've talked about that they should do, Chris, for 5 months and pick up like a full challengers team? Like they haven't made any sort of thought process or decision there, and it's not going to happen likely until like after Labor Day at best.
And also, shout out to my man Trey Zero, because obviously he stepped back from competing. He's not competing any longer. He retired from competitive Call of Duty. I think he's just looking to do other things, coach or be a GM or.
Coaching and GM, yeah.
Speaking
Yeah.
of which, I think Trey would actually be a really good coach. Just
me
like
too.
knowing him on a personal level, like he's very a vibey person. He's very smart too, and he actually kind of like he really understands Call of Duty. It's a shame he always got the kind of shit into the stick. I still think he had like the best record for that like London team, even though he like kept getting tossed around and dropped, and he had numerous amounts of very unlucky seasons where he ended up like basically not even playing. I still remember Cold War. He basically just couldn't get over to the States. I think in New York he had something similar. Like he just kind of has always gotten the shit into the stick, man. And I really feel bad for him because I think he was a great player during his run. And I think he actually could make a great coach in the future.
Yeah, agreed.
How many players has IW retired?
There's a list somewhere on Reddit that showed all the players.
I think Crone tweeted it.
I can see if I can find it,
It-
but
it
there was a
equal to
lot.
another year. It was a lot, but
IW is
it's
really
equal-
undefeated, bro.
Yeah, it was equal to other IW years because the game's a graveyard after the years. It seems like compared to like a Treyarch game.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll through and see if I can find the list. But yeah, shout out to Trey Zero. Hope to see him still working with the CDL. Obviously, would hope the best for him. Wish the best for him. So shout out to Trey, man. But let's move on and talk about OpTic. I think a lot. Obviously, we were talking about Pred a little bit. Going over there. Envoy was a rumor for a little bit. People thought Sid might have been going over there. People thought maybe they were gonna keep Dan Ghosty, but now, not only are they picking up Pred, but apparently they're picking up Kenny. So it's gonna be Dashy, Kenny, Pred, and Shotzi. And I know there was a lot of people who weren't happy about that, especially like on socials and stuff, like on Twitter and Reddit. It just felt like a lot of people were just kind of hating on it or just really not feeling the team. I actually kind of like it. I feel like Kenny might be a player for them where they could kind of slot him in there and he could kind of fill in gaps and just be like a winner for them. Just be somebody who can run whatever gun and bring some leadership, some knowledge. Kenny's always been a really smart player. He's been a smart player, good player. He's a winner. He's proved it many times before. So I don't mind the move at all. I know why. I know why they picked up Kenny.
Can I spit on this one real quick, Tom?
Of course, Ben.
Yeah, spit on that
and then,
shit.
And then I think Sam, you should go next because I
Excuse
think
me?
you team with Ken for so long, you can kind of speak towards, his abilities. I think a lot of OpTic fans need to understand that I think this move is about a culture reset. It's not a secret that OpTic hasn't won as many championships as the fan base desires in the last 5 to 6 years compared to some of
Two.
their other counterparts, and especially an org like Thieves.
Wait, Ben,
haven't
make
been
sure you
around as long.
clarify.
What do you mean?
You said haven't won that many. Make sure you clarify it's 2 in 6 years. I just
Yeah,
wanted you to make sure.
Pat,
we
always keep an
speak
OpTic
with
honest.
facts.
Anyway, resident opticator Pat. Anyway, they need to, I think, match what you see what some other orgs do as far as how they found their practice into especially LAN environments. And I think they've struggled over the years to translate the practice that they've done at home into LAN events. They're a type of team at times, and I listen, I'll be critical on this, where they are, they like to play on their own host. They don't like to play in, give themselves kind of difficult practice conditions. They've gotten better of it over the years, but they're a team that's been a little bit too safe and too comfortable in their sort of environment at home. And when they go to LAN and things are not the same, they don't really stack up. And I think that they need to bring someone in like Ken, who's kind of been there, done that, has won chips, won COD champs. I really like the move. And I know a lot of people want OpTic to pick up like an S+ tier fucking crazy Slayer, blah, 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 but they don't need it. They have plenty of kills in Bruce and Pred. And let's not act like Ken can't shoot straight. Let's not act like Ken is good with an AR, because you know how he came up into COD in AW, it was with an AR. So
Okay,
I really like the move. And by the way, it's so funny to me that I really just moved on from the Pred thing with this OpTic pickup. Like people talked about it for 6 months, and I haven't seen any breakdown of the fact that they were able to, finally lock in their upgrade for Kyler. Love Kyler as a player, but Pred's a step above. And I really like the moves from OpTic to, I think, address some of their weaknesses and the reasons that they were getting 2 second places this year and some of their other issues from past years. But go ahead, Chris.
No, we should. I'll wait till Sam, because you already said Sam should go after. I'll wait to give my take. Because go ahead, Sam.
I mean, I've been clipped a million times talking about Ken. I think he's the best case scenario for this OpTic team. We'll get into FaZe in a little bit, but Zach was rumored to be here as well, and I think they would have run into the exact same issues that FaZe currently has, which again we'll probably talk about. But if Zach was on this team, you would have looked at it and talked about like who's going to lead this team, who's going to call out, who's going to be the person to be the glue. And I think that Ken does check every single box that you would have an issue with coming into Rostermania for OpTic. Every single thing that a fan could possibly want OpTic to do in this Rostermania, Ken kind of checks that box. And I think he also being on a flex is just his natural role. I don't think him being a main or him being a main sub really benefits his play style, because he should just always be using the best gun, period, for the highest ceiling version of Kenny that you're going to get. And I like I said, bro, I've teamed with him for 3 years. I know how he is in practice. I know how he approaches improving. I know how he is in a grand final in COD champs. Like, I know how he is when we're 0-5 in stage 2. Like, if to Ben's point, it's a culture reset thing, Ken is that. And I think that he brings a mindset about Call of Duty that OpTic has needed for a very long time.
Yeah, it's not even so much him using the best gun. I feel like it's just getting him comfortable. Like, if he could kind of just run whatever gun. If he needs to pull out a sub, pulls out a sub, or AR, pulls out an AR, could kind of just run whatever he wants.
He's also beat the shit out of their franchise for 5 years, so it's great to have him on the other side. You know?
That's all right.
It's not right at all, but it's true.
Sorry, my bad.
He's kind of been like that kryptonite for him, but you know what Kenny brings to the table. He's very situationally aware. Like, he knows the situations, when to pull out different guns. So I feel like it's just a perfect role for him. But I'm curious if anybody disagrees, like Chris or Pat. You guys not really feeling the pickup.
I like the pickup from everything except for the role thing, because we had Kenny running an AR for quite a while on older CODs, and we called for him to swap to a sub, and even he was kind of like not really sure if he should do it. He ended up doing it. It took him some time, but then he kind of got back to his old ways, and then he continues that onto this game. And again, he finds himself being very inconsistent and struggling, running a sub. So listen, I do like the pickup, and I think Kenny will, help out OpTic in terms of the, just the outside perspectives, but I still think he still needs to perform well consistently, because even on your team, Sam, he was pretty wildly inconsistent. There was a point at a time where
Modern Warfare 2 for sure.
Yeah, we were at a point during that entire year where I was like, okay, if Thieves is going to win, he needs to play well. Period. Like, if he's not playing well, they're gonna lose. And there was very rare times where he was playing well and you guys were losing.
I also think that our team dynamic is just drastically, not even comparably different to what OpTics would be with him on a flex.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, it's going to be different, but I still think he needs to step up his individual game, and I'm curious to see if he can do that with an AR. But I still think this OpTic team is going to ride and die by the fact that Shotzzy needs to get back up to that quote-unquote superstar level that he had in basically like Modern Warfare 2019, and that he had at some points in Cold War, where he just looked a lot better. I think this year was not particularly the best year for him. I think he had like one really good event. Outside of that, his online gameplay was still pretty good, but in terms of his event gameplay, it was kind of one. So I don't know. I need to see more out of Ant if I'm going to rate this team a lot higher next year. And then Kenny on top of him, obviously bringing that whole leadership aspect that I think obviously they need to fill with the fact that Dan is gone. Kenny needs to step up. Other than that, I love the Pred pickup. Obviously, when people were saying like Envoy or Pred and stuff like that, listen, I love Envoy. I just think Pred would have fit better with Shotzzy as a duo. But yeah, that's all I got to say about it.
Question of the group, like, are you guys?
Well, let's get Pat's opinion first, and then Ben, hold your question. Okay. We'll get your question after Pat goes. But go ahead, Pat.
Look, if this was any other year where we were going to a different game, I would think this OpTic team was a fantastic move. But for all we know, and basically what we can assume, Modern Warfare 3 is going to be Modern Warfare 2 2.0, right? We can basically assume that. They've had maybe a year in development.
It's going to be a reskin.
It's going to be a copy and paste. Yeah. So because it's the same game, I don't rate this move like incredibly high compared to some of these other teams that have made roster changes. I think Pred for Huke is a no-brainer. Obviously, Huke was not that good. Pred is obviously a superstar. But then we get into, Shotzi and Kenny. And to me, I mean, both of these guys were incredibly inconsistent all year long. And Sam, I know you made your point about like Kenny is in a different dynamic, but to me, I mean, Kenny, I personally think he is always going to be the most efficient for the team on a sub role. And I don't think this Optic team needs just another AR slayer
comparable to Pred and Shotzi.
What are you saying? What
Would you rate Kenny's? Well, I don't know.
I would say he's the third best
like,
sub in that category. But what I'm saying is, I think him as just a player individually is the most effective on a sub role. But to that point, Chris, I think Shotzi in this type of game, right? This is Modern Warfare 2, at least, was a no movement Call of Duty. I think that hinders Shotzi a ton, and I think that's why we saw a ton of inconsistency out of him all year long. And then we look at Ken, and Ken was basically a 0.8 the entire last 2 months of Modern Warfare 2, online and on LAN.
Yeah.
I know he had a good event where he fried, but it's like outside of that, the whole year he was pretty inconsistent.
I mean,
and so I think this team is going to struggle again with consistency. And I think it's going to be one of those things where like we talk about how Pred plays, and Pred is obviously godlike, but he's a pretty like baity sub, right? Like that's just his role. And so when you factor that in with guys that are already pretty inconsistent, yes, they upgraded, but they're also coming from being like a top 12, top 8, top 6 LAN team, at least the recency that we've seen. So I don't rate this move as like jumping them to 1, 2, or 3 spots. I think they obviously made upgrades. There's no doubt about it. They got better, clear as day. But I just don't think that they got better enough to be considered better than NY, Ultra, or FaZe.
I think you're underrating Shotzi, bro, to be honest. I think you're underrating him. I know he didn't have the most consistent year, the best year to his standards, but you know what he's bringing to the table. Like, he's an impactful player regardless of what he's dropping, Pat?
I just thought he was inconsistent. I don't know. And I think he's going to be even more inconsistent with a slower kill horse sub like Pred.
I think Pat's going off of basically like assuming the game is a clone of this year, and Shotzi's performance is kind of projected to be somewhat similar. Listen, people are going to say that, I'm biased to Dan, but I personally would have kept Dan even if they had Pred on their team. I think Dan was making strides as a player, and he got way better towards the end of the year. I think he obviously is a natural AR, like natural flex. He got better in every single way. He brought the leadership aspect. I don't think Kenny for Dan, at least in this current title, was an upgrade. And I don't know if there was something else there as to why they didn't kind of like go back to it and they're so desperate for change, because I think the whole Kenny thing was a result of them not getting their initial pickup in Draza. And obviously, I feel like if they would have rated Dan higher, they probably would have just went back to him instead of like picking up Ken. So I don't know. I think these guys got fucked. At least in that category, because again, they're just picking up somebody that hasn't ran an AR and was already like being asked to switch to a sub in prior years.
Bro, if ending up with a world champion, 8-time winner, and the guy that slammed your org for fucking 5 years is getting fucked, I would love to get fucked.
I'm saying
that sounds fantastic.
But the problem is that compares old games though. Like the fact that we're playing Modern Warfare 2 again, but Modern Warfare 2, because that's what we're gonna play again. Like to me, we're getting. I assume we're gonna play the exact same title. Basically, it's gonna be the same title with new maps.
People can change their play styles and like grow, and I like.
But I just don't think that's going to change anything.
Yeah, but then also Kenny, dude. But also, if it's the same game, like, dude.
Kenny has to
change his whole play style again to match this team, while you would have just had an easier transition with the guy that you already were playing with that already brought you like a decent amount of success and started to improve as a player. I don't know.
I definitely, Chris, from the outside looking in, that makes sense. Sorry, just real quick, Ben.
Go ahead.
The reason that I'm pushing so hard for Ken being on this roster, and again, I don't really know how Dan is as a teammate or inside a practice environment, but I know how Ken is. And like a lot of the issues that Optic has had over the past years is like the fundamentals, the system. Like that's what a lot of people were praising about Dan joining. And like Ken is literally the epitome of that. Like we on LAT for those 2 years and even back in Black Ops 4, like we had this system. That was what our team was known for. We had the way that we played COD, and a lot of that success was attributed to Ken. So that's like more of a like an anecdotal experience of mine because you guys can't know that. Or, like,
Yeah, I
wouldn't know that.
I heard it was JCap.
It was Cap and Ken. They thought the exact same way, but Ken was the one that would like lead conversations. I know, but like,
I was hoping you were gonna roast him.
No, of course. But like Ken does all of those things. Like Ken ticks every box that OpTic is needed, in my opinion, in this Rostermania. Like I brought up at the beginning of the convo. So like that's why I'm going to bat so hard, because I genuinely think that Ken will bring in a lot of that practice room day-to-day shit that OpTic has been lacking. And again, Dan could have brought it. I don't know.
That's my whole thing, is that he could have brought it and it would have just been easy because it's his role naturally. Ken has to kind of readjust.
Just kept the status quo and kept going.
Exactly. Sure. And I think it would have been like a 100% direct upgrade. You had Hook, who was their most inconsistent SMG player on LAN, and you're bringing in Pred, who's arguably one of the best players in the game. Or not but arguably the best SMG in the game. Like, you could obviously have that argument if you wanted to, or second best, I guess, in terms of Hydra. But I don't know. It just would have made more sense to me. That being said, though, I still like Kenny as a pickup. And like I said, he just ticks all those boxes. I think he's going to do great there. But that's why I said, my thing is, now Kenny needs to perform, because it's not enough to just do that. When you're looking at every other team that is upgrading in a cultural aspect and upgrading in a talent aspect, Kenny needs to bring that too.
Well, let's go on board with Ben. Ben, go ahead, get your point off, and then you can ask your question as well that you want to ask.
Chris, I think it's clear that Dan played pretty good at the end of the year for them. Like,
he was the best at champs.
Like, clearly there was something behind the scenes that didn't work there. There's no other plausible reason I can think of to not bring him back. So I agree with the points being made that, like, if you're trying to get a similar player to Dan with maybe a little bit more experience, like proper fit, I really like Ken if that's sort of the player mold that you're going for. You can't go for another Manior because you run into the FaZe problem. I think Sam, you were alluding to that earlier. We'll get to with the FaZe thing, but like I like the Kenny pickup. It's going to be a culture change. Ken is, going to be the guy that's going to be on everybody's butt after maps, making sure we're talking about situationals and we're talking about how we want to play 50-50s. And if people aren't watching VOD, they're going to get called out. Like, it's the right kind of thing for an OpTic team that needs to find, the kind of dynasty form that their fans expect.
What happens with this team if they like go to the first event and get like 8th or 6th? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, how do they react to failing? Because like, look at this team, and like, I mean,
how they fail, Pat? Like how it happens, if it does happen.
Dude, to me, it's like you made this right. You have Pred, like Kenny. If you're outside of top 4, like you're top 3, you're failing. So it's like, I'm really curious on how they're gonna react to that situation if it happens.
Well, here's my question, Pat, and this is what I was gonna ask to the group, is like, do you guys think that I like the Pred and Ant duo, but do you think that's a duo that's going to gel right away, or do you think that's going to take a lot of work from the team and both players to kind of?
I think Ant has to play the way we talked about. Shift. Yeah, it's the thing the convo we had last flank. Like, Shotzzy has to play like a BZ, bro. I'm sorry.
It's going to be on. I agree with Pat that it's going to be on Ant, because you're not picking up Pred after this, however 8 months, however long it's been, to change his play style and change how he plays. Like, you're picking him up as a known commodity, dropping the 1.2, doing the things that he's been doing consistently for the last 2 years. So it's going to be on Ant to shift in a way that Simp did. Not necessarily the playstyle, but it's just in that kind of drastic shift for the last year. It's going to be on Ant.
The thing is, though, I don't really mind that, though, and I think they're gonna mesh pretty naturally, simply because I think Pred is very dynamic. So in this game, he plays a little bit more of like a lurker role, very ratty. He's always like getting pushed up into spots and then just like go. Yeah, he's going opposite. But hey, do you guys remember him in Vanguard? That guy was like the big, not in a bad way. He was a red dot chaser. He saw red and just chased it like a bull. So I think Pred is very talented. He's very dynamic. I think it won't take much time at all. I think Pred will probably not necessarily in a negative way. I think he's just going to adjust to the game, adjust to his team, and he's going to obviously let his individual play style shine. But that's why.
So you think Pred should shift his play style?
No. I think he just naturally will. Like, he's
they're all going to have to a little bit.
He was a very different player.
But he was a very different player
compared to Vanguard.
Exactly, and he's just that good. And it's not like where it's gonna be like a bad thing. It's just gonna be natural. That's why I wanted Pred with Shotzzy.
Well, I think Shotzzy has to shift his playstyle.
Well, everyone's going to, but I'm saying this is a lot more of a natural change, and which is why I wanted Pred over other SMGs joining Shotzzy as a duo.
My only thing for Pred is this, is like, I think he's nasty, but he's coming from a team where he had a very free world, with a team where I would assume that's not going to 100% be the case. and with more expectations on a team. So like
He should
he's gonna
definitely
to
have
make
the
some-
most free reign on this roster. Though.
Yeah, I think they should play around him.
They should.
I think so, but he can't like 100% do all of the stuff he was doing on Seattle. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it won't be. I don't think
can't
it'll be
run
to
away
the
from the
extreme.
hill the
Yeah,
way he
it
was
won't
doing
be
in
to the
Seattle.
extreme, but
Yeah.
he should be the person to have the green light on this team because again, you're picking him up to just perform how he's been. He's just a consistent superstar sub.
He's also
and you
probably
need
the
to keep
best
doing
player
it.
on that team individually.
I could agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
over the last 2 seasons for
and,
sure.
And they
Yeah.
could run into a problem that I think FaZe ran into a problem, right? Like playing kills too much and overplaying that aspect of the game. Like they're gonna have to make sure that they have some system in their structure.
That's what the Ken pickups for, because Ken's gonna, I think, make sure that they, stick to the rules that they want to play by, and make sure that they're following and they're not.
There will be a
deviating
system
from
in
it.
that camp. It will
think
not
so.
be. It will not be what it was last year with like just controlled pure chaos, depending on Ant and Kyler to give you like a 1.1 every map. Which hats off because they were doing for a very long time. But
Mhm.
that it's going to be a drastically different approach to how Call of Duty is played for that camp. If Ken is on the roster,
I also think Dashy changed a lot as a player this year, and I think that's going to
Agree.
also like continue to help them in the future. But I mean, I think we've talked this optic subject up too much. I think we should probably move forward.
Yeah, let's move on to Atlanta FaZe. I think a lot of people want to know what's going on with them. The rumors, Draza. I mean, Draza was rumored to go to OpTic with Envoy initially, and then that changed after a few days. And come to find out, Draza is ending up on FaZe, at least as the rumors say. So, what do you guys think about that? I think Draza is the perfect role for them. I feel like my complaints recently with FaZe
put
is just
MC on a main, dude.
Yeah, I mean, my complaints recently with FaZe is that I think they had too many ARs. I think, and I don't think that's Austin's fault. I think MC kind of shifted his playstyle a little bit with the way he's been playing. And kind of sucks for Austin that I don't think they're gonna get rid of MC. I think MC is just one of those players you can't get rid of. So MC obviously moves to him in AR, but I think Draza is gonna fit that role, that kind of like flex, like that second AR role perfectly. I think that's exactly what they needed. I felt like they were playing too many kills at times or pushing out cuts too much. They weren't really playing with an objective mindset, and I think that hurt them at times. And I think Draza is going to help them a lot, as well as just the hard work and the passion that he brings to the table and how much he plays the game. I mean, the guy's a grinder. He's a winner, and he's got a really good team around him now. He always had with LADs, but with the trios, obviously, it's going to be a really good team. So I'm curious to see how he slots in, but I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work really well.
I want to start here because Draza is my boy, and I rate this guy highly. I think, like I said, this is probably the perfect pickup right now with them not trying that whole simp to flex role. I think
Thank
Draza,
God.
if they couldn't get scrappy,
Sam hated that shit, bro.
if
I
they
didn't
couldn't get
mind it, to be
scrappy,
honest, but
That's
still
the
think they
worst
should have
decision
done
of
it.
all time.
if they couldn't get scrappy with that whole rumor, then Draza would be the next up. I think Draza is very good at search and destroy, so they obviously don't lack that again. They pretty much just replace a 1-for-1 in terms of talent there in the game mode, but also respawn wise, shout out to Cap, because Cap I think put out a tweet or said something about it where Draza's the perfect ball if you think Draza's a
Perfect
super
litmus
good
test.
player, because that guy in terms of respawn, he's probably one of the most aggressive AR players out there, and in terms of the way he plays and how useful he's on the map, it's he's always a useful death. He's never one of those AR players that's not involved. He's always putting down damage. He's always making sure that he's in the right positions, and every single one of his deaths is useful, where it's not he's just baiting other people and playing too slow. And I think that's kind of what FaZe needed. They needed somebody else to just basically get in there and get gritty with the rest of the roster.
I think it does two main things. One is it simplifies the game a lot for MC to move to a main role and kind of do his thing in a lot more of an impactful way. And I think it frees up Chris to kind of play the way that he was playing in past games, which is exactly what you want. So I love the move for FaZe. I think Draws kind of fits their sort of grinder mindset, fits their S&D first mindset, because Draws is a guy who's going to give you doubles in S&D. He's going to give you 10 per. So I really like the move for them. But obviously, as is with FaZe, they're always a talented team prior to this change. They're still a talented team now, and their bar is first. So let's see if they can finally start converting some of these final losses, because they've had a lot of them in the last 2 years with 2 different main ARs.
Like I said on Twitter, I don't think the needle moved a lot. I think the biggest advantage is MC going to main. But
That's the catalyst of this entire roster.
I don't think
MC not
this
being a
needle
flex.
moved much. I think they were basically a guaranteed grand finals before.
How
and
much
they're
can
a
it move?
guaranteed grand finals again.
I mean,
So-
when you're this good, to be fair, you're not gonna make insane unless you're Toronto, which I don't think they're on FaZe's level prior, obviously. But when you're as good as this trio is, you can only make those small needle moves to begin with.
And I mean, Draza picking between FaZe and OpTic, I don't know how long he actually made, decided
hope it
between those
wasn't
two.
long.
It should have been an instant FaZe decision. There should have been no debate there. Nothing to compare. You go to FaZe. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is there anybody who didn't like it? I mean, but what are your thoughts on it? On the,
well, I mean, I already talked on it, but the OpTic FaZe thing is interesting because I've seen a lot of different takes. Sam, and
the rivalry is going to be good this year too, huh?
Dude,
Sam,
if Ken is on OpTic, oh man,
the rivalry is going to be crazy.
Wait.
Especially with Draz, kind of the rumor of him going there and then him going to FaZe. I just feel like it's just going to be so fun to watch. But go ahead,
Ben, what you're about to say? I don't.
So two things. You and I talked about this on stream when we were bullshitting in the morning a couple days ago about like this. You always hit the OpTic offer thing. I think Zinni had mentioned it, and it's like I see the thought process.
It just lacked context. The clip just lacked context.
Context is very important, and for someone like Draz, who I think, sprint growth is great, but like if you're trying to make a team decision based on what's my best ability to unquote win, and it's just probably tough to hear, is that FaZe trio is probably going to be your best bet. And I think the second thing for me with this move and Draz joining this team is I really like for them getting kind of back to a lot of the quicker con they were playing in past games. I think that because Chris had to adapt so much to sort of like having two mains, I think he ended up, if you watched him played, like Tyler
he wasn't
really
doing criminal shit, dude.
But he was doing some he was doing some
criminal shit.
And I think a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Chris is struggling." It's like, well, if you watch the minimap, like I think he's just trying to make up for the fact that the pacing is just so off.
Sim's filling gaps. Like what fucking?
Yeah, no, it's criminal.
Pat said it perfectly. MC being on a main is exactly what FaZe needed over this offseason, and they did that.
I think the whole simp on a flex thing really came really if they couldn't get that kind of flex player that they really wanted, kind of like that guy that can like slit that role.
Yeah.
Because then if they couldn't get that, the worst case scenario, moving Sim to a flex wouldn't be that bad.
It's just unexplored. It's just unexplored potential. Like I think Simp is good enough to kind of.
I think it's unnecessarily explored potential.
It's unnecessary. But if they couldn't get the right guy for the job, then it's.
You don't move one of the greatest sub talents of all time in a current CDL landscape where your subs win you championships to a flex to accommodate someone else.
We've seen that happen before, and players continue to win, and even in some situations get better. My thing is, if you would have moved MC to a main is a clear change, right? We all agree that.
Yeah.
BZ as the entry sub is the clear role he's always going to play. Yes. I think there was a possibility there where they moved Simp to a flex, and he still would have been, if not the best, one of the best flexes in the game. And they had an opportunity. I mean, we know the FaZe trio can get anyone they want in the CDL, basically. They had an opportunity to pick from Pred, Envoy, etc. to replace that role. I think they had an opportunity to not only limit one of those stars going somewhere else, but basically filling in a flex role and still keeping the best player in that role.
I don't think what I'm arguing is necessarily that Chris wouldn't be a great flex because he uses an AR. It's unnecessary because, again, he is one of the greatest sub talents that we have ever seen in COD history. And removing him from that role, even if he's the best flex in the fucking game, I would rather have him on a sub with Tyler. They played together for 4 years, 5 years, however long it's been.
I just don't think they were
exactly what you're going to get.
Sam, you want to know what else you don't do? You don't take a person that was running an AR and struggling, switch to a sub, won a world championship, and have him go back to an AR, by the way.
It's just, I don't know. Whatever, bro.
And then, after all that, right, that kind of leaves Slasher kind of getting whittled down. I think a lot of people are wondering kind of where he's going. Now, Priest is out there, Slasher's out there. Some of these guys might even link up. But we talked about London, we talked about Vegas, New York, the top four, OpTic, FaZe, Toronto, or OpTic, FaZe, Toronto. What do you think about Boston, Minnesota? We got the Florida Mutineers, LA Thieves,
they're fucked, Tom.
Seattle Surge, and LAG. I mean, what's going on here?
I think that Boston has initiative over this roster, man. They're clearly throwing cash around and making
They're building
offers.
around Snoopy, right, Sam? That's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, he's like supposed to be still on their team, which I think he has high upside. We don't have a big enough sample size to really debate how good or bad he could be.
Next season's really going to be his rookie year.
I think he has high upside. But I like the initiative out of Boston. They clearly, since they've joined the CDL, have had the mentality that they're here to stay and they're here to win.
Great org,
they're a phenomenal org, and they're proving that again over this offseason because again they're making competitive offers and they're trying to entice players to come play there. They're not just showing up and whatever happens.
They're the only CDL team that's active in challengers too, right? Like obviously Boston
LAG,
Academy with.
I don't know if you really count their academy team, but they were down there for a while.
I don't count that org at all.
Toronto, yeah,
the year
but that wasn't
No, but
recent.
consistently since they joined, since they joined, they literally are running
Rocker,
a challenger ecosystem
Rocker
through
has as well.
Doug, and they're picking up the players through challengers and putting them in the pro team. Snoopy, Ghosty.
I like what Boston's
who's the
doing.
other
I think
player?
that they're a
Crimp?
destination for sure. Cramp, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of what they're doing.
I'm just curious who those players are going to be that kind of slot in around Snoopy. I think some people were there rumors going around with Boston in their camp with Slasher and Dan, right?
Ronnie tweeted Slasher, Dan, and then Priest on a sub, which I fucking hate.
I don't like that either.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
either.
Yeah, I don't like that as well.
He tweeted not intel, but I think Jake Hale replied like, "This is an interesting roster that you composed here," or some shit like that. But that is not good.
I think it's clear where their direction go, which is they retain Cramp and Beans. I think potentially both are probably not going to be on the roster next year, or at least one that might be like a sub. They're clearly trying to get or target like AR players that have that leadership mindset, because candidly, I don't think either Big Wake, Beans had it. They had it with Zin, and obviously Zin retired, so that was a big loss for them. And then the sub thing's a little bit trickier because all the elite sub players are out. They have potentially one in Snoopy, although we don't know. He played one event, looked good at champs, but like, players have a good first event or second event and they never develop, and it's always a what if. There's a question of who they would get to pair with him. I think Boston, though, right now, as far as the like start over ish or rebuild destinations, they are kind of number one on the list. As far as like talking to people and sort of the conversations they're having with like the Minnesotas and the Seattles of the world, like that's the one that a lot of people are wanting to sort of gravitate towards.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, my thing is like, even if you can like make the best roster possible and throw it to Boston, like, do you guys think they legitimately stand a chance against this top 4 lineup?
Yes.
I'm only gonna say yes because I feel like every season that we've had, there's been a dark horse team that come out and just like win an event randomly. Like New York was the team that everyone was hating on going into last year, and they won 3 events, including champs.
But that's usually a new game, right? Like, I don't know about you guys. I'm assuming we're playing the exact same game.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we're operating under the assumption we're playing a literal carbon copy of Modern Warfare 2, then you can infer a lot more things than you could otherwise. But there's a team every year, man, where it just comes out of the woodworks and is competitive when you would not expect it. So yeah. You would look at the top 4 teams.
Slasher, Ghosty, Priesta, and Snoopy.
No, that roster's definitely not.
I mean, you just
not.
You just never know, bro. Like we've had surprise teams. Like I don't know if anyone expected Rocker and Modern Warfare 2019 to be as good as they were in the beginning of the game. I know.
Florida Modern Warfare 2019.
Played really good.
Minnesota won an event in Cold War.
Yeah, Lennox had some good years relative to sort of some of the other years like this year. Like, there are going to be some surprises and twists, and in the top 4 minutes, the top 4 all year.
Dude, and at the end of the day, bro, like if one team wins an event every single event, exactly. Like the whole conversation that like you expect everybody to like have a championship caliber team or be able to win an event is just not feasible. Teams are just trying to find some sort of consistency, build foundations in order to attract players so that one day they can make those moves and make those championship runs.
Last year the last 2 years really, we've had like a 5.5.
The talent disparity is
5.5 teams
more severe now.
Basically, we had NY, Ultra, FaZe, OpTic, LAT, and half of Surge. Right, that was the talent that we've had the last 2 years. And the thing is, all of LAT are now in the top 4, and the half of Seattle is now in the top 4 as well. And so it's like you basically just put all the talent that there was winning events and making finals into the top 4.
Wait, I do agree with you, Pat. I think that the talent disparity amongst the top 4 teams is the highest it's ever been, for sure.
But do you want to know why it's so fucking bad? It's because the fucking the coaching staff, like the management of all these organizations, they're so fucking bad at like bringing bringing up talent and kind of like molding it, I guess. I think
the majority of them just got absolutely sent to the.
I think
the majority of them are bad, but there's a handful Toronto and Boston that I think are doing a good job.
Because none of y'all are going to do it because you're former players. I also think some players have also built some bad teams over the years.
That too. That too. But I was going to say, I think we're getting to a point where I think there's like there's going to be like a talent drought even in the lower end of the challengers spectrum, where like some of those players you're just not going to find Pred, you're not going to find Abizi, you're not going to find those people. It's up to the lower level league teams and the challenger teams to kind of like mold these players and get them to improve, because it's been happening where some of these challenger players, they come up, they fall down, they're back in challengers forever, and they never come up. And I think a lot of people are just it's got to be it comes down to the coaching, the managing staff. They're just terrible at like molding players.
So what does LAT do now?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into some of these other
the
teams.
best of the rest squad.
I don't think they have anybody right now, Pat. I think
They're
it's
just chalked,
I think
right?
they're just kind of waiting it out.
I think if you're LAT, you need to think. And maybe you don't admit it to the players, but like if I am Novus, for example, GM, I need to be thinking 2 or 3 years. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but
What?
if you're not,
Jesus
listen,
Christ.
I'm about to explain why I'm thinking that. You know,
Yeah.
you're not going to spend a lot this year, likely. That's sort of the rumor around LA Thieves. You need to try and find 1 or 2 diamonds in the rough or cornerstone players that you want to build around going forward. Kind of what Boston's done. And that will be key to potentially building a winning team
I don't
next
know if
year.
the league's gonna
when you
be
can
here
spend
in
money.
3 years. You want them thinking about that?
I mean, what else you want to do? You want
There's nothing else they can do. They can't just pull
be
out.
like fucking London and just start fucking throwing darts at
Yeah. No, I want them signing
great
minimums.
fucking
I want them
strategy.
signing absolute
strategy.
minimums across the board, clearing house, investing the least amount of money possible into the space. That's what I want them
Wait,
doing.
but I don't. But
Or by the fan base. You're not giving.
Wait,
you're
but
not
I
giving
also
your team a
don't-
chance.
look at Nate. Even Nate Shot thought so. My bad.
Wait, I don't
Seth.
even
That's
think.
not what Matt said at all, but
My bad.
yeah,
Seth.
it's all good.
Well, I don't even think like Thieves' problem is they're like you said cleaning house and shit. I don't think that's their issue at all. They won the world championship last year. Granted, the rosters kind of like fell apart and went to different places. I mean, I think they have like good coaching staff. They have good management. Like
If there's
feel
anyone in
like-
the league I trust to build a roster, it's Brandon, Cap, and Shane.
exactly. I feel like they're still gonna be a desirable place. While like Minnesota and like all the other teams don't really have anyone there. No coaches, nothing. Like
Yeah.
at least Thieves has some sort of foundation. I think they could still bring up a squad that maybe might not win championships this year, but at the very least, still try to be a contestant and maybe bring up some talent to kind of create, a desirable franchise in the future.
For example, like if you're Cap and Shane, and you think that someone like Abuza is very talented and is worth the project, like this is the year to get him in, start him
I
as
do.
a sub or put him in your lineup and get it going. Like take a chance on some of those players. If it doesn't work out, all good. Because if you're going to spend money next year, obviously we don't know that, but if they are, like you're going to be able to build around that kind of situation.
That's probably where I would go, Ben. Like just to give my thoughts on the situation, I'd probably build around some challenger guys and just pick up some guys that have been making noise on there. I think Abuza's a really good shout. And his name hasn't been brought up a lot, huh? In the
I
Rostermania
heard
stuff.
Boston was talking about him.
Yeah, a lot of people. Abuza's definitely talking to people. I think
Definitely think he's a
very
good player to
good
build
chance.
around.
I heard there was
Exactly.
something with like Rambo and like Booza and like Lins or something like
I heard
that.
Rambo's
Was
name
that
thrown
right?
around.
That Vancouver
I'll be
rumor.
honest, I chased down that rumor. I don't think Seattle is exactly decided what they're doing, but that was maybe one thought process they have. I don't know how likely
Is that Vancouver
is
thing
real.
true?
the Vancouver thing.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a rumor for about 6 or 8 months that, they had originally had the team in Seattle because there was a partnership they were going to do and it fell through. And now considering that their Overwatch team is in Vancouver, like they may move it back to Vancouver. so we'll see if
I
that
don't care
happens.
about the name, but like if they force players to live there, that's a massive L.
Yeah.
That's a huge fucking
As soon as
Massive
having 2 Canadian-based orgs, it just creates a lot of outside
it's
of
not,
the
it's
game
not even that,
stuff.
Sam, bro. One of the worst places that you could play online Call of Duty from is Vancouver.
The Northwest.
Bro, think about
Yeah.
how far you are from every
it's not
fucking server
smart.
we have in the game.
I think
Especially with how
in
much
Vancouver,
online
to be fair,
means.
is great, but it's like you said, the distance to the servers that you would be playing on is
And
And
actually doesn't
we know
matter.
how
It's
important
so far.
online is too. Like online is important
Yeah.
as fuck.
I think the fact that we're having these conversations about these rosters essentially, or these franchises essentially being screwed in terms of the talent pool that they can, kind of achieve in the rosters they can put together should be a literally insane wake up call to these franchises that they need to literally double down and invest in like actually scouting
I
players.
mean, this
and
is
like
just a
looking
product
at-
of the absolute fucking buffoonery of the salaries of the last, however many
wait,
years it's
yeah.
been.
Sam, I'm curious. Was there zero intention to re-sign you guys last year? Like how is it possible that World Championship team was just all on expiring contracts this year?
I don't think you can say anything.
We're not going to get into that.
No, just let me know.
I mean, we.
I could
actually
DM you
asked-
if you want, but I'm not getting
Okay,
into that.
okay.
I can actually speak to this because we had Kenny on Scrap Time, Chris and I podcast. I actually asked Kenny this week. And Kenny's answer, I believe, and Sam, you can confirm it if you want, was that
Sure, I'll confirm what Ken said.
was there were
Not what he
basically
said.
like there was like pay cuts required, and the team didn't want to do it, and is what it was. Basically what he said.
Listen, I will say this is after we won champs, obviously with the economic situation of just the world in general and esports, we did have to take a pay cut to stay together, and that was something that we all wanted to do, and there was no hesitation. There was never a moment where we were like, let's go see where we can stay together and go play, like try to get more money. There was literally like, all right, we need you guys to do this. Obviously it's not ideal. You guys just won, and we feel like shit. And we were like, yeah, it's no problem. Like we want to play together. We want to win. And that was that. There was never a moment where we didn't think about being on LA2. And that is what I will say.
But either way, I think the point is, the fact that the World Championship team all just had expiring contracts and they just lost their entire, basically, talent they've invested in over the last 4 years, basically, was a big blunder. And I think, regardless of what happens, I think that's going to be that's the reason, right? Like, I think you had to retain at least one of those players, period, if you wanted to stay competitive in the league. I
think we all thought it was going to be Sam, at least.
But Sam, if you were,
I kind of fucked up.
If you were hypothetically offered a new deal in which the second year was like a 10 or
wouldn't matter for Sam,
reduction
he's
from the-
retiring.
No, but hypothetical. I'm just curious because we'll just go down the path on this. Last offseason, if you were offered a new deal, obviously you guys take your pay cut year one and then another pay cut year two. Would you have signed that deal, or would you said fuck that?
I think I am not the best person to exercise this with because I just wanted to play for LA2. So
Okay.
I think that while the pay cut would have sucked, I'm not the person to talk to about this hypothetical.
And
Because,
also,
granted, as long as I'm not getting straight disrespected, I would have played for what I thought was a reasonable offer. Because, I understand what I know that salaries were fucking wild. And everyone on this call knows what people were making. And they're fucking insane. So, if LAT approached me how they did, and they were just brutally honest about the situation, they're like, look, this shit is unsustainable. And I was like, yeah, no, I completely get it. Then if they approached me, Ben, like you said, for a pay cut, and it was a reasonable number, I'm like, yeah, sure.
I thought I was underpaid, to be fair.
I think most
Real?
people.
Damn.
Yeah.
I think most
Jesus
people. I think
Christ.
most people with the brain would not have wanted to re-sign something like that. I mean, because they didn't know where else they can go.
I'm not the person to talk to about this hypothetical for sure.
For sure.
And then obviously we got the Florida team. Rumor over there is that they're building a Spanish team. I think a lot of people thought Meadows was gonna be on that team, but come to find out, the rumor right now is that Meadows will not be on the team, and that they're bringing in.
They also abandoned their trademark, right?
Yeah, apparently.
About that?
Yeah, they abandoned their trademark. I think the
Yeah.
Miami Heretics thing is actually happening. I'm pretty sure that's.
But
No, I'm saying they abandoned the Miami Heretics one.
Yeah, it may just be Florida Mutineers. So the rumor
really?
still is that they're still going to do the Heretics thing, but they're going to keep the same branding at least for this year that they've had. prior, which
Because
I
that
like.
Florida branding is fire.
I think it's fire. To be honest, I love the logo, and I've come around to the name. So would it suck to have seen them kind of license the Heretics name for the sake of their team?
Yeah.
I wonder if this whole Spanish project for them is a complete failure. Will they continue to do that for another year? Where
I don't know.
there's not very many Spanish. There's not a lot of Spanish talent. I think there's maybe a couple handful.
Well, what do you
of people.
consider a failure? That's the question.
Well, that'd be
In
a
the
question.
landscape
That'd
of
be
the
a question
CDL,
for them.
are we going F1 style, top of the midfield? Because you're not going to
I
consistently
think they
beat that
definitely
top
want
four.
them top 6, right? They definitely want them top 6. At
I
least
think they would
that's
at least want them qualifying for champs.
So that's what I'm saying. You want them to improve? I just don't see a world they improve.
And
I mean, you never know how good those guys are as a team.
I never got to say who, but the rumor on the block was Real. Real is the rumor coming in, who I think is a great player. I think a lot.
It's Reaper.
Yeah,
That guy's got,
he's
really good.
really good, bro. He's a really good player, and
Hard worker too, man.
and he speaks Spanish, right?
He is Spanish, yeah.
He speaks Spanish and English. He played for Rocker Academy, and he was basically speaking English the whole
Yeah,
time.
so,
Did you team with them for an event this year?
Me? No.
Oh, you team with
I team with Javi or Vickle, Super. Who was the other one? Crap, I can't remember. Redcore, and one more.
Yeah.
Actually,
There were
that
no
was them.
buyouts, right? This offseason? 0 buyouts?
Scrap would have been the only one.
Yeah, but, none
which
actually
never
happened.
No, none happened.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any team-to-team buyouts. Now, it's possible if some of these players on Challengers teams get picked up, there maybe is a small buyout. But
That's actually so
we'll
crazy
see.
to me. When you think back to the beginning of the CDL, year one, how many buyouts occurred team to team, and then how many we've actually seen follow
there's
that
just, like-
first
Yeah, but
year
nobody was
is
on
nuts.
teams year 0. Is it you're talking about year 0 or year 1 here?
Year 0, like coming from the 2018
Yeah.
season to 2019 season, it's just crazy to me, like how big those buyout numbers were being thrown around year 1 to now, like them just not even happening.
No
or
one-
just
no
They were
one's
all-
buying
they were
out-
having to
also-
let people
They were
go.
also capped. Like they actually knew about the problem ahead of time, and there were fairly stringent rules about how high those buyouts could be. Because keep in mind, you had these CDL teams that had no players, no staff. Like they had to go out and get players from United. Atlanta FaZe had to get players from FaZe Clan. Like there were transactional things.
No,
that
I
needed to
know,
happen.
Bro,
but I'm
there's like
saying,
there's like
Slowly over
one
time,
or
there
Wow.
were less buyouts. I think that was just going to happen naturally, though, as like people got on contract cycles and
Yeah, this
became,
is just one of the off
yeah.
seasons where everyone's available
There's
and the
more of
1+1 is ending.
yeah. But I also think that like just the economy and like the whole like state of the franchising stuff, we already talked about it, like even during the season where people are just not gonna be incentivized to make big moves like that. That's why I think you see teams just reaching into challengers or looking at players that essentially are getting released in terms of making moves. I mean, look at the people that OpTic picked up. OpTic picked up Hook, which basically got released from a pro team, and if he didn't get picked up there,
Wait, I
if
will
he didn't
say
get picked up there, he probably would have got picked up in general.
I
And then
will
to make
say
another move, they had to go
Seattle-
into challengers.
Seattle fumbled.
they didn't
Bad.
fumble hard.
Yeah,
If they
did.
got offered what their rumored was that they got offered to then suck the entire rest of the year and then Optic just get them for free is
We
insane.
called this.
I know, but it's just I just want to reiterate it.
They fumbled.
Reiterate it.
They should have
It
just sold and got the bag. They should have just got the bag. They could have made some money off of that.
But Pat, I'll say this:
A lot of
regardless
money.
regardless of
That's a lot of
economic
money.
conditions, like I don't think there are a lot of. Let's say the conditions were better for esports. I don't even know if there would have been a lot of buyouts this year, just because of the contract cycle that people are on, and I just didn't see where any.
There's not gonna be a lot of
moves
players that
have
would
been
require one.
desirable. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that just it was one of those years where the players people
One of the
wanted were
big
just
ones.
free.
Yeah,
They were just out of
but
contract.
if the economy situation was better, then a lot of these players probably wouldn't have been free. To Sam's point, like 100 Thieves wouldn't have offered pay cuts and tried to and not been able to re-sign their world championship team last year. So like
And then New York
in a-
would have offered
yeah,
Kevin a new deal last
in
year.
a normal world, like I think these players would have been retained to their teams. And if that's the problem, right? With when you have a league like this, and even if the economy wasn't in shambles, when you have a league where there's 4 teams that are willing to spend money and 8 teams that aren't, granted we're here now, Boston is, like, you're eventually, when contracts expire, you're going to run into these situations where all the talent just floats up, and then we have a very big disparity. And that would be okay if there was like 30 teams in the league, but with only 12, it gets really tough.
Those Fridays are about to hit.
And
is what you're saying.
I see a question in the chat. In a normal world, you would have a salary cap. The problem, and I keep bringing this up on the show, so I'll do it again. They can't have a salary cap in the CDL. They tried it already, and they got in trouble with the Justice Department because the way that the U.S. law is written, you can't have a salary cap without a contractual bargaining agreement for the players. And since the players don't have a union or a CBA, it's in violation. And they actually got in trouble. And they have
Well,
a
now that
proposed
Seth's retired, they might be able to do that.
maybe, but they have a proposed settlement now in front of the courts for approval on that front. So you're never going to see a real salary cap in a CDL until there's a
And
union.
then
with the players.
another team I want to talk about, or a duo that I feel like that's kind of been thrown around in the hat a little bit, was Alec and Illy, right? Wasn't that a duo that people were talking about? Maybe the LAG.
Yep.
About building a team. I'm not really too sure who those other 2 players are going to be that they're looking to get. But
Illy was also on that Wake Standy Kyler roster, so people thought that he sketched on Alec.
That was
yeah.
a ridiculous roster.
which
I'll say
that roster
Yeah.
didn't last very long. I felt like that was like a rumor for like a day or 2, and then
Yeah,
the
it was like
players
2 days or something.
Well, let's explain why that stuff happens, right? To some people that are newer. So you see the situation where we have a lot of empty roster teams with 0 players. So you're going to see players naturally kind of duo, trio, quad up to kind of shop around to org and say, hey, we're a squad that wants to play together. You're looking for a team, pick us all up and let's go. And it's been pretty successful in history of COD in terms of convincing orgs to do it. Now, some of those teams haven't played that well, but it is what it is. So that's what's kind of happening there. I kind of hated that roster when I heard about it. The Alec
Me neither.
Ender duo
Me too.
is, I
an
don't know.
interesting duo.
That's a prove it duo.
It's 2 inconsistent-ish players. So I actually like an Alec and Big Wake or an Illy and Big Wake kind of AR duo more than say an Alec and Illy sort of potential duo. I don't know what you guys think.
Say that.
I
What's
thought-
duo?
I mean-
Porter and TS.
So Alec is retained, right, by LAG?
At the
What we
moment,
know?
yes.
At the moment, yeah.
That's crazy. I like Alec, but he was by far their worst player last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if LAG ends up going with that team. I mean, for the rest of the teams, it's kind of hard unless we missed any teams, or unless there's any other rumors that you guys
I'm
can
not
think
gonna
of.
lie, just quickly, AR wise, outside of the top 4 teams, in terms of like ARs and who I'd want to play with, looking at like potential subs that are like leftovers, for example, like Standy. If I were to looking at the AR player pool, players I'd want to play with that I would do everything I can to get on their teams at this point are, I think Donnie is underrated here. I don't think a lot of people are talking about Donnie.
Yeah, we haven't heard much about Donnie either. Anything
Also,
quiet.
I would
Don.
Okay.
Just real quick, Chris.
Go ahead.
I was obviously hanging out with Clay like last week for Nameless's wedding. Shout out to Ann for getting married. And Clay was heavily gassing Don, and he was telling me that like Don had made a lot of improvements this year on like being a better teammate, playing for the win, all that stuff. So I agree with you. Like
hard worker, dude. He's really good. He had a good
people
year
are sleeping on
individually.
Don. I would love to see him get on a team.
A lot of those guys too. Like, where's Clay going? Where's Don going? I think some people want to know where Attach
Clay
might be
was
going.
Boston,
I was
right?
gonna say,
But I think that
Yeah,
went
No,
away.
that's probably gone. Yeah.
but this.
Go ahead, let Chris go. Let Chris
I just
go.
want to finish my list. Like,
Yep.
if I were like these SMG players that are kind of like stranded, kind of not knowing what direction they want to go into, like, because you guys were talking about Arcities and Illy, like Donnie, I would definitely say Donnie, Slasher, Dan, Clay, and then
Wake
like
and Lamar.
Wake. I don't know if Lamar's gonna. I don't know if
I don't know
Lamar's
if he's
gonna
in
get. I don't know if he's in that
But
conversation.
that's the ARs right now.
But yeah, I think overall,
Lamar's definitely in the
those
combo.
guys mostly,
he's-
and then
he's
maybe.
playing?
I think
hasn't said otherwise.
Cammy Attach again, those two as well.
And
But
Attach. I forgot about Attach.
wait,
Yeah,
hold on,
Attach too.
Priesta too, but Priesta, Priesta as well. I forgot about him.
Like, I don't know what combination's gonna happen here because I feel like this can go a lot of different ways. Might
There's
be
a lot
some
of really
sketching
good-
going
This
on.
is going to be
There's a lot
so annoying for the orgs, though. Let me
Yeah,
tell
a
you.
lot
gonna
of
be
really
annoying as
good
fuck.
ARs and
No,
also
there's
really
no
annoying.
good subs. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
that's where I was
There's
about to
no
go.
good subs.
That's
That's
always the
problem
hardest
with
thing to get.
The league, right?
I think Standy. I think
Fred
Standy.
now in the top fucking 4.
I think Standy and like Joe Deceives are probably like two of the best subs I can think of off the top of my head that are like left over. Untapped potential here that is still pretty good.
Wait,
as
hold
well
on.
as Cap. I was gonna say Cap.
Eli's untapped potential.
No, I'm saying other untapped, but like outside of them.
Okay.
I'm saying outside of them, I'd say Cap, Mac, Afro,
I just think these are a lot of players with
Vivid
there are
Nero fame.
some red
Vivid
flags with
Nero,
some of
yeah,
these
fame as
players
well.
in terms of either work ethic
Asim
or
putting Asim in the chat. We haven't talked about Asim.
I really hope Fame gets another opportunity because I think he's actually really good.
that's why I think you should go.
I
to
think so, too.
Steve's. Go with Cap in them, and they could develop into a really.
There's
very
going to be
good
some
sub
weird
player.
teams.
Dude, there's going to be
There are
some
going to be
wild
some
teams.
wild
Yeah.
teams, but I still think there's some good talent out there, man. I still think Nero is really good. I think
He
if
got
he
dropped
gets
unnecessarily.
yeah, I think if he gets like really good systematic players around him and stops like being like, because like, dude, look at Nero's history. He kind of went on. He was at first on that like Scuff Boston team that first formed with Nero, Cap, and Zinni and them, and they were all right, and then he kind of went into that whole just fucking fuck fest that was Boston last year, where they were just replacing, where they were just dropping and picking up anyone. Like,
Yeah.
I think Nero should honestly try to play with like the likes of like Dan or like Slasher potentially.
So like
And-
real quick, because this is probably towards the end of the show. I have one question for everyone. What if you were like, say Boston? 'Cause I think Boston's probably the most desirable location after the 4. Who are you targeting right now? Like, who do you go to? Like, look, I want you to build a team for me. Or like, what duo, trio, quad, like whatever. Like, who are you looking for if you're Boston's GM right
I mean,
now?
you're
You have a
keeping
link of
you're keeping
players.
Snoopy, right? You're keeping
Is there a
Snoopy.
link of
Keep it
players?
Snoopy.
But Snoopy is young. Like you're building around Snoopy, but you don't even know if he's good yet. I think the one player no brainer that they need to get out of everybody else is Austin. I think Austin had 2 really good seasons. He's still a great player. He got dropped from FaZe and didn't play bad. It's a real tough situation. You got to get Austin in your org because he knows how to win. He's won championships. He's won COD champs. Like, get him, work with that coaching staff. Like, they will develop players and always have a very solid, great team.
Yeah,
Do you go with Dan or Priest? Dan or Priest
That's
or
what I'm saying.
both?
Like, so
Well,
Dan,
that's how-
Priest,
let's go down
both.
the list.
No, you do not. I'm not putting.
The
I'm
sub
not
player is
putting Preston on a
important.
sub.
Who
I
are
would
you
agree.
pairing with Snoopy? I think that's a more important question right now.
I mean, bro, you could look at that entire sub list and make an argument for any of them, and
Any
I'll
of
be like,
them.
yeah, sure. Maybe
because
shit,
they're
maybe good.
because I was gonna say
Yeah.
because every single player there has their ups and downs.
Yeah.
And I think Snoopy is a very quiet person and quiet player. You listen to them. If you know Snoopy, he's very quiet. They need somebody in that sub role that actually has a voice, because I think that's just super important. Your sub players are the people that fuck shit up the most. They are the ones that are pushing out cuts and spawns and influencing the map the most, while the ARs are kind of filling in and reacting to how that is happening. If you don't have a submachine gun player, at least one, that is going to tell you what the fuck is going on in that front line,
That's
you
where
are going to fail.
on LA2.
You
Whatever
are
Zach
going
can
to
do.
fail. Yeah, exactly.
Bands too. Somebody said bands. I mean, there's so many names in the chat,
So
bro.
I'm saying,
That I
you
see.
can make an argument
Capital,
for 15
Vivid,
players.
Bands, Afro, Asum, Fame, fucking who?
But I think we're all in agreement, right? That it's just
Nasty.
like Austin and then Preston or Dan, right? Like that's the duo that
Let's
should
go
be
on
sought
all
after.
day.
I think that's
Gwyn.
I think that's the least
Jimbo.
downside, highest upside like AR combo you can do. The subs are hard.
Jimbo.
Like I just think is nailing that second sub is going to be so key to like them being good right away or being stuck in the fucking blunder they were in last year, where it's like we're just solidly a top 16, but like we can't crack that top 3. So I'm very curious. Like it's just going to be a really difficult decision for them to make.
Well, is there anything that we missed? Anything at all? If anybody in the chat has any questions, or if any one of the co-hosts think that we missed anything, I feel like we pretty much
covered
hit
most of
every
the
rumor.
rumors.
I feel like if we didn't cover a team, it's probably because there's nothing really going on there. I know
I
people.
think Doug is
I
joining
think
phase.
I think there's one. There's one thing
fucking
we missed.
crazy.
It's not even like a Rostermania thing. It was a story that I think came out last week or the week before. I don't think we talked about in last flank of, it was a Jacob Hale article that there's ongoing league and team conversations, and that there's a thread of what if in both OWL and CDL teams that or franchises or organizations that have OWL and CDL team, they kind of unify and have the same name for their teams. I'm curious, Tom, I know you and I have talked on stream, but I don't think we've gotten Chris, Pat, or Sam's thoughts on, potentially that when you see like.
I mean, how many
Boston
cases does
Uprising
that
and
actually
a CDL
happen?
OWL team.
How many franchises have both?
I think Jake listed out. There's probably like.
So we have what?
6.
Seattle, we have Boston, and then I don't know shit about Overwatch. So you guys have to help me out. LAG.
Atlanta, OpTic, and
But I feel like these situations, like you wouldn't want OpTic to go by
Florida.
the Outlaws if they still do, or whatever
the
that
fuel.
situation
Yeah.
is.
Or the
fuel now. Yeah, sorry. I don't watch Overwatch, bro. Sorry.
I think at most, if
you wouldn't
this
want FaZe to do that. Like
I think at most, if any of this
Toronto
happens,
is
it
another
affects like 1 or 2
to
teams.
the Outlaws. Yeah, that brand
yeah,
was
that
fire.
was
though.
my net is like I could see 1 or 2 teams doing this just because I think a lot of the like COD names are either licensed names that they're not going to want to fuck with, or like Atlanta's got that distinction between their 2 teams. I don't think they need the FaZe.
So it's a lot of. Okay, I was not.
Yeah.
No, that was not. Okay.
Some people were talking about the Rocker
half the
merger. We talked about the Rocker merger before. I don't think we talked about it on the show just yet today. But what's going on with the merger? They're 100%. They're merging with what, G1 or G2? What is it
G2.
again?
It's
G2,
not,
right?
It's not 100%. It hasn't been
It's
officially
not?
talked about. It's a rumor. We're still waiting to see if it's official or not.
Yeah, that was just a rumor that kind of, but that doesn't really change much, I don't think, does it? Does that change a lot or
I
no?
mean, all that you really take from this is that they squad wiped, and G2 is an organization. If you know them and other esports, they are serious about winning.
Yes, they
So
are.
they are going to try, obviously, their best to salvage the situation and then push forward. And
We gotta be careful
in the
here.
next couple seasons, I guess.
Yeah, we gotta be careful here, chat. We gotta be careful. But yeah, other than that, I think we pretty much hit everything. I mean, a lot of people are spamming different players like Clayster and Attach, but I don't know what's going on with somebody. I don't know where they're going. There hasn't been any rumors kind of dropping with some of these players. I think that they were rumored to go to different rosters, but a lot is changing by the day. Some people are saying Jimbo. I know it's hilarious, but speaking of Jimbo, I'm pretty sure he rebranded or he sold his Twitter or something. Doug was on stream ranting again today, right before the flank.
Of course.
Which I'm not really too sure what he was ranting about. Apparently Jimbo made a new account or some shit. I really don't
poor
know.
Doug, bro. He actually got hacked on to not go to champs. That's
He
so
got
fucked.
hacked on. He got hacked on not to go to
Listen, Ben, I'm
champs.
all
That's
in on
crazy.
sinking this
Quite a
putt,
few
by the
people
way.
did, not just Doug.
And I'm all in on you sinking this shit. Just putting it out there.
But yeah, if nobody
Am I
else
making a
has
putt?
any, if nobody
Oh, I
else
have a
has any
question.
final thoughts, go ahead, Pat. You got a question? Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. What am I being careful about? I'm just curious.
Shit.
I
When
don't
we
know.
say that, what do we?
No.
what
Not
do we
too
imply?
sure.
Like,
I
what
don't
do
know.
we-
I think that's why we're memeing here.
No, I'm
Yeah,
just asking.
I don't know.
When we
Yeah, I
say
have
that,
no
I'm
idea.
saying be careful.
I
Like,
think-
what's the
I think-
downside of not
Ben,
being careful?
I think Ben is saying that because he's saying careful you don't spread misinformation.
Fed J said, "Be
my
careful,
thing
bro.
is,
That's all you
I've
need to
already
know."
Listen, I've already seen people seeing what random accounts say on Twitter as fact, and it's not always fact. And also,
bet Intel
oftentimes things
Optic.
are rumors or current lines of thinking, and that can always change within the hour. So I
Like
just
that, Ben.
always tell people during this period until it's officially reported or it's something reported by, say, a Jacob Hale who's going to try to get multiple sources. Just be very careful what you see on streams and on Twitter.
Yeah, and then
So we don't have
nice.
to be careful. You're telling the chat they got to be careful.
I'm telling everyone, including you, Pat.
All I know is Ben
Nah,
made a video.
I don't know what I got to be
All,
careful
all I
about.
know is Ben made a YouTube video on Ultra potentially selling Kleenex and Inside. So yeah, Ben needs to be more careful because
I was
apparently
just
that's not true.
discussing- I was just discussing
I'm
the
just
rumor about
kidding,
it.
Ben. I'm busting your balls. I'm
yeah,
busting
it's
your
just
balls.
rumors by the day. They change all the time. But Ben, why don't you sync us out with a little putt here, bro? A lot of people.
All right,
let me
grab a putter, beer back.
let me see what's going on here with the poll, bro. It seems like a lot of people have been syncing this. It's been a little while. Sam, I know you're new here, so we'll let you have the
I'm
guesses.
all in on Ben.
You're all in. You
Ben
think he's
syncing this.
making this or what, bro?
He's syncing the fuck out of this.
Bro, I'm ready to go. And then also, while Ben is gone, guys, stay tuned. Once a lot of these rosters are finalized and a lot of official announcements come out, we really want to run some throwback tournaments. I already have a lot of funding pushed aside to run about 4 or 5 tournaments. So I definitely want to pair like some sub duos and some AR duos. I can't do full rosters. You know the league doesn't allow that. But we're gonna be doing flank Fridays, and we're gonna be running. Yeah, the league doesn't allow us to run. Yeah, I can't run a tournament with just or else I would just do all the rosters. You know.
Yo,
Yeah.
Tom and Pat, I think you guys would actually. This is something I wanted to run by you guys because I got this idea from my chat. It wouldn't be COD related, but you know how there's been that that whole rivalry between Warzone players and CDL players.
Yeah.
What if you did a Warzone?
There's still Warzone players?
Well, Haggy,
What if you
listen,
did?
Chill. Tom and I have talked about this idea. Don't talk.
Wait,
about it.
what do you mean? What idea?
Gasp. Careful. Be careful.
I don't even
Be
know. If you,
careful,
I don't even know
I
what.
mean,
I don't know
if
what you're
he's talking about
I was
collabing
gonna
Warzone,
say-
yeah, we're gonna collab with some Warzone players.
I was gonna say
Be careful,
Warzone.
Chris.
I was gonna say Warzone versus CDL players, but in order
I
to
know,
even
I
the
don't wanna
playing
steal the idea.
field.
Stop talking about it. Stop talking about
Wait,
it. I don't want
I-
people-
what
Be
idea?
careful, Chris.
Ben,
Chris,
take the
be
fucking
careful,
punt.
Chris.
I don't know what idea. What idea is it?
Be
Like,
fucking
can you
careful,
type in the
bro.
chat what you think it is? Because I don't even know if it's the same thing we're talking about.
Damn, he got the dogs out.
What is what?
It's
What
just
I
barking
bet,
Oh
at me, bro.
hell no!
bro? I need to
Come
know.
on, Ben.
Oh, and he fucked it up. He
no,
missed
he
it.
bottled it. He
He
fucking
fucking bottled it.
He fucking
I
bottled
got him
Oh,
worked up. I got him worked
no.
up. That's on me.
Oh my god.
I got him worked out. I wasn't careful
Back
enough.
it up. Back
Len.
that ball up. Back it
Len.
up. Why is he putting from so close? And then he
Len.
sinks
He
it.
always does that, Tom.
It's a 7-foot putt.
You
What
have
are
another
Wait,
foot.
Ben,
You have another
Ben,
foot.
can you type in the
Yeah.
chat what
Okay.
idea it was?
Okay. Okay. We're
Can
back.
you type
we're
in
back.
the chat what idea it
Yeah,
was? Because I don't even know if
I'm
we're
not
on the
too
same
sure
page
what he's
here.
talking about either, but I do want to run back some fucking CDL versus Warzone 1v1s. I've talked about
Those
that
are
That's
good
already.
not what it
content.
was, but
That's good content.
I'm
Ben,
trying to run those back.
Ben, what were you talking about?
Well, I don't listen.
Can you just
I
type
know-
in the chat what I was what you were gonna
Yeah, you
what
can
you
put
thought
it
I
in
was
the
gonna
chat.
say?
You can put it in the chat because I
'Cause
don't
if it's
know.
not the same thing, I won't
put in
say
chat.
it. Quickly.
You gotta be careful, Chris, for real, bro. Like you gotta chill, bro.
I don't know what he's bro,
He
what
said,
do you
bro.
mean I can chill?
He said, bro.
Yeah, okay, but what do you? But you're not.
Yes, this is the part of the stream where we talk to each other in pokes and chat gets angry.
Yeah, I don't know what Ben's talking about, but we could just call it there. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben missed the pot. Guy costed all of you guys.
Chalk.
It was 23 million channel points on him making it and 11 million on him missing. So whoever
That's
guessed
tough.
him
Listen,
missing.
I was pushing make propaganda. I can't
yeah,
lie. That's
you
on
did.
me.
You did. You were pushing for Ben here. I think
Yeah.
he got a little shook before he hit the pot. I think he went a little crazy, but
No, I just hit it too hard. It
guys,
happens.
that's gonna do it for us. Obviously, stay tuned. We're gonna be running some off-season tournaments, some throwback CODs, and we're gonna be running more episodes as some of the things get finalized here. And there's some more announcements and some more buzz going around the Call of Duty competitive scene. We'll obviously cover it here. But I appreciate everybody who tuned in. Huge shout out to Sam for coming on, man. We hope to see Sam a lot more here in future episodes. Huge shout out to the rest of the co-hosts
My
as well.
people talk to your people.
Yeah, we'll talk to people. How you doing? But
This was a really clean show for 5 people, by the way.
yeah, no, it was
That's
good. It went well. I thought it went pretty well. We all let each other speak. Little arguments here or there, but it happens.
We were arguing with 30 seconds in.
typical. That's typical Ben Pat banter, though.
Yeah, and we'll obviously we'll be back, chat. We'll be back with another episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Go to anchor.fm/theflank to check out audio sites that we're on, and go follow at the flank on Twitter and Threads. Now we're also on Threads. So go check it out on Twitter and Threads. And we'll catch you guys in the next one, man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, brush your hair, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Boing, 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 boing.